Pro 14 is back in Ireland, and surprise, surprise, Leinster and Munster fight out a closely fought match. 27 points to 25. It finishes. People always tell me that these games are close, they're hard fought, and this match was a pretty good example of that. Munster certainly gave a good account of themselves, even if they did lose the match. They were ahead for large periods of this game, and you look at the stats at the end, they had a lot of good stuff going for them. Leinster, despite that winning run going on, certainly have some areas to work on for themselves, but they'll be pretty pleased to take the win over their rivals. So, I'll go over some of the key moments of the match, some of the key stats, some thoughts, and as always, you guys can let me know your thoughts on the game as well. There was definitely a bit of rust, and that's to be expected. These guys haven't played a competitive game for a very, very long period. We noticed it when Super Rugby here in New Zealand got underway. We noticed it when the Aussies got underway. The Premiership last week, and here in this game, there were some knock-ons. There were some loose passes and injuries. Man, for Munster especially, it was pretty brutal. They lost debutant Snyman, and they also lost Kilcoyne after like 7 minutes. Snyman had just won a line-out steal and landed pretty heavily on his ankle, and he had to go off, which was a real pity for him because, on your debut, you really want to make an impact, and he was trying with a line-out steal, but, couldn't stay on the field after he landed heavily. And it only took like 8 minutes before there to be a bit of handbags for some of the guys. Clearly, these two sides, they don't like each other. It's Leinster and Munster, so, again, to be expected. It was a pretty fiery start. Conway got the first try. And I'm really pleased for him, man, because I honestly feel like of all the Irish players, he's probably one of the most underrated guys. He's just such a good finisher. He knows where to be at the right place, the right time, good positioning. He's quick. He knows how to beat a man, which he'll show, especially with his second try. But for this one, Munster just had numbers. A lot of pressure they put on. It was like 17-plus phases. Good conversion, and it's 7-0 to Munster. Damien Delende gets warned a bit later for a kind of an off-the-ball push or shoulder or whatever it was on Johnny Sexton. He concedes a penalty, and it actually ends up being pretty costly because Cian Healy gets a try from a line-out maul drive, which resulted directly from that penalty. That's a pretty costly one for him on his debut. It's 7 points apiece. 26 minutes. Munster at the breakdown, man. It's CJ Stander. I don't know how many. I thought he should have been man of the match. I think they gave it to Chris Farrell. Stander, man, with the breakdown, he was just brutal. And he was doing it in the Six Nations. He's not lost a yard of it because he was getting a lot of penalties for Munster. They kicked that penalty. It was 10 points to 7. I thought, like, a lot of the times Leinster seemed to be trying to run the ball out of their own 22, and it was risking a Stander or other person turnover. So they kind of set themselves up for that one. 36 minutes, Munster kick another one to make it 13-10. I've missed a Leinster penalty in there. 39 minutes, Ringrose, though, he gets a try right before halftime. This one kind of caught me by surprise because I've seen Leinster play enough to know that their forward pack can absolutely grind you into the dust. And they had like a 5-meter line out. And I was absolutely sure the forwards were just going to bust it up all day long. And next minute, Henshaw's putting in a little grubber kick through for Ringrose. They've got good, almost like telepathic communication, those two guys. And Ringrose, sure enough, is the first guy to get the ball. And he dots it down pretty much under the sticks. So Leinster managed to go in front 17 points to 13 at halftime. So it's the one lead change of the game, I think. And run meters at halftime were 125 to 74. The possession territory is pretty even. Munster edging the territory, Leinster edging the possession. Both sides, though, and they don't want to let each other through, both sides tackling in the 90s in terms of the percentage. 94% Leinster, 92% Munster. They don't want to let anybody through. Concerningly, for Leinster, their line-out was 4 from 8, whereas Munster was 2 from 2 at halftime. Second half gets underway. McGrath had a line break. Lama went through on a little Johnny Sexton kick through. He seemed to kind of hurt himself after that, but he still kept playing. 47 minutes. Munster win a penalty after, I think was it Stander again? Leinster had a 5-metre scrum and Munster won the defensive penalty. So this is what I mean about both sides kind of not wanting to let each other through. It was pretty brutal stuff. But then, speaking of getting through, James Lowe on 51 minutes. He gets a try down the left wing. They just had numbers wide again and he's got the gas. There was a 2-on-1. When it's a 2-on-1 with James Lowe outside you, he's probably going to score pretty much every time. Sure enough, and it's a great conversion. 24 points to 13. So apart from a not last minute, but end of game penalty, that's the majority of Leinster's scoring done. And at 24-13, they're kind of looking pretty comfortable. You're thinking, man, if they concede any more points, Munster are definitely done. They probably need to score next. Score next they do. Toner gets a yellow card. Now, to be fair, I was doing a live stream during the game with some other people watching the game. So, I wasn't really listening to what the ref was saying. I don't know if he'd given Leinster a bunch of warnings. Usually prior to getting a yellow card, the ref will say to the captain of the side that's conceding penalties, you guys need to watch it because next one's going to go to the bin. It seemed like a fairly innocuous line-out penalty. And Toner's off to the bin on 62 minutes. And sure enough, Earls, I think I've written 62. There should be 64. Earls on the left wing. And it's again after a large Munster period of kind of attack, which is creeping forward but not looking too dangerous. And then Earls, I was absolutely sure, I was going to say certain or sure, whichever one, Earls ain't going to go in. He's on the left wing, and I'm thinking they've got an extra man, and he's about to get pushed into touch. This is going through my brain in a fraction of a second, because there's like 2 or 3 Leinster defenders there. There's no way Earls is going to get that try, but you know what? He gives me the middle finger. He gives Leinster's defence the slip, and manages to just dot the ball down in the corner. If the highlights are out, you should stop watching my video and go watch them, because that try was glorious. Some of the people in the stream said they thought he'd lost the ball. They never showed kind of like a frame by frame of him scoring it, but my gut reaction was that he'd got it kind of from nowhere. So, that try in the corner with the great conversion makes it 24 points to 20. And at that point, it's like properly game on. Leinster do kick a penalty not long later on 69 minutes to make it 27-20. So at worst, at that point, they're looking like maybe they will be at risk of a draw. But then 72 minutes, Conway gets his second try. Maybe he should have been man of the match. He had a one-on-one with James Lowe, and James Lowe was not able to stop him. Conway, I think I said made him look silly. It wasn't his best defensive read anyway. Conway's a hard man to stop, and so it proved. Hanrahan, though, whose kicking had been phenomenal, he couldn't get that last conversion, so it's 27-25. It was a tough one out on the right, but he missed it. But that yellow card ends up being 12 points to Munster, 3 points to Leinster, so it's a pretty costly one for Toner Simbering. He is absolutely the villain. However, right with like a minute to go in this game, who gets a bloody intercept? Like, who's the least likely to get an intercept? Devon Toner has to be one of the guys least likely to get it. But he put those big mitts of his on a relatively weak Munster pass. And from then, the rest of the game is down, last minute's down Munster's end. They've got a line out. And interestingly, I guess wisely, but kind of anticlimactically, disappointingly for this game, Munster choose to kick the ball out after they win their own line out. It's like 8 meters out from their own line. So wise, but really anticlimactic. They kick the ball out. They take the losing bonus point. So it finishes 27-25. You don't see teams do that much anymore. Generally, even if their back's up against the wall, they'll just try and get a score. The Waratahs in the Super Rugby game last night did it against the Brumbies. They tried to run the ball out, and guess what? They ended up conceding a try. That's what Munster didn't want to do. So I guess they did have the bonus point to play for. So yeah, pretty brutal game. Like I said, it wasn't perfect. It had some rust. There was about, I think, 10 knock-ons during this game. So a lot of kind of stop-start stuff, but a little bit of rust. It's normal, and there were certainly some proper moments of magic to balance that out. Like the Earls try, like Conway's try, like James Lowe's try, even the Ringrose Henshaw one, man, it was like proper sets of skills. This wasn't. If you look at all the try scorers, there's only one forward on there. So, these teams were certainly happy to throw the ball around a bit. Final stats, Munster end up with more possession and territory, 55% possession, 62% territory. The run meters, though, was in Leinster's favour, 298 to 230. Leinster's line-out finished 5 from 10, so still not that flash, whereas Munster's was a flawless 13 from 13. Both sides ended up still tackling in the 90s in terms of that percentage, 90 for Leinster, 91 Munster. Leinster made 124 tackles, Munster made 101. So that's encouraging. I mean, that's like test match quality tackling. Very hard to beat defenders. Penalties conceded. This is, apart from the line-out, another concerning one for Leinster. They conceded 17 to Munster's 9. It's a lot. That breakdown work is an area to work on. So, Munster, I guess, a bit made it hard for them. Kilcoyne went off, as I mentioned. Snyman went off. Jean Klein went off after he'd come on. So, yeah, this is what I mean. Like, you can do training, you can do full contact sessions, but the actual game is something else. Individual stats, Ringrose finished with 73 run meters and 2 clean breaks. Earls finished with 43 run meters, beat 3 defenders, and not many defenders were getting beaten in this game. Like I mentioned, the tackling percentages were that high. So, yeah, as I mentioned, a pretty brutal game. There was handbags a couple of times. These teams both wanted to get it done pretty desperately, but it was 2 points in the finish. You guys let me know your thoughts on the game. How did you think it go? How did you think it went? Key performers. And what did you think about Munster's decision to kick it out at the end? And good to see the Pro 14 back. I know the Italian game was yesterday, but this is my first game to watch. So I'm pretty pleased with the result. It was right down to the wire. And Leinster's run goes on. You guys let me know your thoughts. I'll talk to you soon. See you later.